following debate between Anthony Comstock and Victoria Woodhull takes place in 1872 after Woodhull's decision to run for office. Victoria Woodhull was one of the main leaders of the women's suffrage movement in the 19th century. Woodhull was a strong supporter of free love and did not believe in monogamous marriage. She firmly believed that women should not be trapped in loveless relationships. Woodhull was the first woman to participate on the New York Stock Exchange and opened a firm called Woodhull, Claflin and Company in 1870. That same year, she started a newspaper called Woodhull and Claflin's Weekly, which focused on controversial topics. The paper featured topics such as women's suffrage, spiritualism, free love, liberal dress code, and licensed prostitution. Woodhull spoke at the third annual National Women's Suffrage Association convention in 1871. She stated that women were considered citizens, so they arguably already had the right to vote through the 14th and 15th Amendments. She was the first woman to run for president in 1872 on the Equal Rights Party ticket. Anthony Comstock, a clergyman from New Canaan, Connecticut, strongly advocated against any sort of reading or viewing material that was considered obscene or offensive. He began his vice reformations in the 1870s by targeting Manhattan booksellers who dealt with erotic material and books. He was widely despised among authors. In 1873, he was the main cause for the Comstock Act, which extended a previous law that allowed the federal government to confiscate obscene materials circulating through the U.S. Post. After challenging Victoria Woodhull's liberal ideas in 1872, Woodhull spent a month in jail. Comstock's success in the suppression of Woodhull led him to be appointed secretary of the YMCA's New York Society for the Suppression of Vice in late 1872. Comstock was known for advocating against books that he deemed to be too inappropriate for the public or contained obscene material. He wrote his own books advocating against corruption. Their titles were Frauds Exposed, or How the Public Are Deceived and Robbed, and Youth Corrupted, Traps for the Young, Gambling Outrages, and Moral versus Art.
A person is not entirely independent of public opinion regarding matters of conscience. We find the principle of individual freedom was quite dormant until it began to speak against the right of religious despots to determine what views should be advocated regarding the relations of the creature to the Creator. And now we question the definition of social rights between men and women, when it is clear that equal rights for all is the obvious choice.
The highest courts in Great Britain and the United States have laid down the law in all such matter. Obscenity might arouse in young and inexperienced minds. Lewd or libidinous thoughts. We must keep the minds of young citizens pure and free from corruption. I cannot believe you would have the audacity to run for the United States President, the highest office in America. Why do you wish to corrupt the mind of young individuals with your radical and outrageous schemes and ideas? It's outrageous.
It may seem to be a strange proposition to make, that there is no such thing yet existing in the world as self-government in its political aspects, but such is the fact. If self-government be the rule, every self must be its subject. An individual cannot be pure and free from corruption if higher powers control his or her thoughts. The only way to be free is to have the freedom and liberation to be his or her own self. The necessary corollary to religious and political freedom is social freedom, which is the third term of the Trinity. That is to say, if religious and political freedom exist, perfected, social freedom is at the very moment guaranteed, since social freedom is the fruit of that condition. That is why I ran for President of the United States, so that I could guarantee that all individuals could be his or her own self.
To repeal the present laws would be a crime against society, and especially a crime against young women. On March 2nd, 1872, I brought the arrest of 7 persons dealing in obscene books, pictures, and articles. I found that there were 169 books, some of which were in circulation since before I was born, and in which were publicly advertised and sold in connection with articles for producing abortion, prevention of conception, articles to aid seductions, and for indiscreet and immoral use. I had 4 publishers dealing in these arrested, and the plates for 167 of these books destroyed. The other 2 books dropped out of sight. I have not seen a copy of one of them in over 40 years. We first of all return thanks to Almighty God, the giver of every good and perfect gift, for the opportunities of service for Him in defense of the morals of more than 42 million youths and children 21 years of age or under in the United States of America. His blessings upon our efforts during the past year call for profound thanksgiving to Almighty God and for grateful and loyal service in the future. There are 3 points that are particularly important. Number 1, every child is a character builder. Number 2, in the heart of every child there is a chamber of imagery, memory storehouse, the commissionary department in which is received, stored up and held and reserved every good or evil influences for future requisition. Number 3, be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that he shall also reap. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Let me emphasize one fact. Supported by my nearly 42 years of public life in fighting this particular foe, my experience leads me to the conviction that one of these matters entered through the eye and ear into the chamber of imagery in the heart of the child. Nothing but the grace of God can ever erase or blot it out.
But what is freedom, Mr. Comstock? The press and our male governors are very much exercised about this question. Freedom is a principle and has benefited the political environments in America, but has not yet extended to the social environment. How can we be truly free if men and women are not equal in society? Women have the right to self-ownership and not the suppression of men. Even the least intelligent person in the community could still certainly see the need for equal social rights.
Miss Woodhull, society does not know what is best for itself, and if left alone, will fall to ruin. People, especially women, make bad decisions, and it is up to the intelligent men to make rational decisions in the best interest of the community. These resolutions threaten and destroy the way of foundation of the society we stand on.
Is there anything so terrible in the language of my reasoning as to threaten the foundations of society? They assert that every individual has a better right to herself or himself than any other person can have. No living soul who does not desire to have control over or ownership in another person can have any valid objection to anything expressed in these resolutions. Those who are not willing to give up control over others, who desire to own somebody beside themselves, who are constitutionally predisposed against self-government and the giving of the same freedom to others that they demand for themselves, will, of course, object to them. And such are the people with whom we shall have to contend in this new struggle for a greater liberty.
Say what you wish, because God sees everything, and with your obscene words, nothing good will happen to you.
Anthony Comstock died in 1915 from causes that are unspecified. By the time of his death, he claimed to have confiscated and destroyed over 160 tons of literature and brought about the suicide of 15 people. Victoria Woodhull remained a banker and spent her last years in England. She still participated in the suffrage movement by giving lectures and running a newspaper titled Humanitarian. She passed away in London in 1927.